Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Meenakshi. On behalf of NEN and Wadhwani Foundation, I would like to invite you all for this webinar and also to introduce our expert, Mrs. Bharathy Jayaprakash. Mrs. Jayprakash is a financial executive and a practicing chartered accountant with broad experience in all aspects of accounting, auditing, financial management. She has worked with many companies like Deloitte, Dawn Consulting, Amba Research, and the Audit Office of New South Wales, Australia. Mrs. Jayprakash has a direct experience in SMEs, MNCs, venture capital, accounting, MIS, and financial analysis, valuation, modeling, administration, and consulting. She is going to discuss on a topic, how to register your company. Before I hand over the floor to Mrs. Jayprakash, there are a few reminders for the audience. You will be on a mute and you may ask a question by typing on the panel provided. Over to you, Mrs. Jayprakash.
Yeah, thank you, Meenakshi. Thanks for the wonderful introduction that you gave now. And good afternoon, everyone. And I'm going to talk about how to register a company. I just hope, it's a pretty dry topic on how to register a company, but I just hope that after a lunch session, I don't put you off to sleep. And the only thing I can promise you is that probably after this, you all will be geared to start your own company. And you know how, it just costs very limited money to start a company, actually. So let me just start and take you through the little introduction of company law that we have in India. So Companies Act 1956 recently underwent a change because of the passing of Companies Bill, and now it's become an Act 2013. So this 1956 Act was actually just a replica of 1948 UK's Act. So we have made considerable changes now and in the new Companies law. So what do you mean by a company? A company is nothing but an artificial juridical person which is created by law. It has a distinct legal entity and it also has a perpetual succession. A common seal is nothing but the signature of the company, because a company cannot sign because it's an artificial person, it's not a human being. So now how do we equate, how is a company born? A company is born once we register. So once we get a certificate of incorporation, the company is born. And if we have to wind up, the winding up process is equivalent if you have to equate it to a person or a human being. It's death of a person. Similarly, once the company is wound up, there's no longer, it is in existence. So we have different types of companies: the private company, a public company, one-person company, unlimited company, Section 25 company, and a foreign company. So what do you mean? What do we mean by a private company? A private company is a company which has minimum paid-up capital of 1 lakh rupees. Now, I presume a lot of you may not be aware of what is authorized capital or a paid-up capital. For the benefit of the audience, I just repeat it. Authorized capital is something that is the maximum level beyond which the company cannot raise money. So probably if I say my authorized capital is 1 crore, I cannot raise money beyond 1 crore. If I have to raise money beyond 1 crore, I'll have to again file it with ROC and extend the limit, and that's how I can do it. Paid-up capital is paid-up capital of a company is the amount that the members of the company pay into the company. Authorized capital can be any level, but paid-up capital is usually lower than the authorized capital. Nothing can exceed the authorized capital. So what is a private company? A private company is a company which has minimum paid-up capital of 1 lakh rupees. It restricts the transferability of shares and limits the number of members to 200. So earlier the limit was 50, but now the limit is been enhanced to 200. The main reason why they have enhanced the limit to 200 is a lot of startups we see and a lot of members are there. So that is the reason we try to actually, they have increased the members to 200. In case of a public company is a company which is not a private company. So a private company, a public company, there is no limit for number of members. Minimum number of members have to be 7, unlike a private company where you have to have two members. Now, like the US, we have introduced a one-person company, which means only one person can be a member and can form a company. Why was this whole concept introduced? It was introduced because, for example, if Shah Rukh Khan wants to start a company, he has only he has some professional skills and which he wouldn't probably want to share, or he doesn't gel well with someone, so he cannot start with another person, so he wants to start his own company, so we can start a one-person company. But it's not so common right now in India. We do have unlimited companies, but unlimited companies are companies which do not have any limit on the liability. Usually a company is something which has a limited liability, but we can also form a company which has an unlimited liability. What do we mean by a Section 25 company? Section 25 company is a company which has, usually if you see the NGOs, the trusts that operate for social cause are actually registered as a trust or a society. They also have an alternate arrangement to actually register themselves as a Section 25, under Section 25 company. Section 25 talks about companies which are registered for purely charitable purposes, for any promotion of arts, commerce or charity or whatever. The only disadvantage of forming a Section 25 company is the profits cannot be shared as dividends. They have to be plowed back for the purpose for which the company was started. And the second thing is, it's always better to be registered as a trust or a society, because compliance under Companies Act is quite high compared to any of these trust or society. Now, as we are all aware of what is foreign company, the name itself signifies it's a company which is incorporated outside India, and when they want to have a branch or they want to establish a place of business in India, that's when we have a registration of foreign company in India. Let me take you through a few of the important documents that the company has. So the first and foremost document that we have is Certificate of Incorporation. Like I told you, it's like the birth certificate of a company. The company can start its activities only after the Certificate of Incorporation. This is for private companies. But wherein if we have a public company, the company can start its business only when the company receives a Certificate of Commencement of Business. So now what do we mean by Memorandum of Association and Articles of Association? Memorandum of Association is the document that governs the activities of the company, and Articles of Association is the document that actually helps you to carry out whatever is written in Memorandum of Association. So Articles of Association is an internal document. A Memorandum of Association is a pretty simple document which talks about the name of the company, the state in which the company is registered, the objects of the company. Now again, objects of the company, the earlier company law, the Companies Act 1956, before the amendment, stated that you have to state the main objects and the ancillary objects separately. But with the new Companies Act, there is no distinction as such. You can just write the object of the company. Per se, I still prefer the main objects and the ancillary objects, because any person who invests can easily see what are the main objects. And for example, if it's a manufacturing company, the main activity of the company is going to be manufacturing, but ancillary activities would involve, like it covers the facility of opening of a bank account, or buying properties for the company, or whatsoever like that, any of the ancillary objects which helps in carrying the main object. So now any investor who would invest, you can't say that, okay, I'm manufacturing something today, but tomorrow I'm into trading activity which is there in my ancillary objects. Doesn't sound quite nice. It sounds a little vague. So that is why we still feel, the CA fraternity feels that, the distinction between main and ancillary still holds good. It's good actually, but we don't know why they have not included that in the new act. Now, a memorandum also talks about the liability of members, basically the capital clause, which talks about what is the capital of the company. As I told you, company's capital is authorized capital, and then you have subscribed capital, paid up capital. You have various kinds of capitals. Anyone who wants information on all that can definitely mail me on all to this, because we do not have the time. I do not have the time to take you through all these things right now. So then, as I said, Articles of Association actually it helps in governing the internal objects of the company. So basically, as I have listed down here, it basically has the number of shares, the directors, the meeting, what are their borrowing powers, and accounts and audit, the basic clauses. Now comes, how do we register a company? First and foremost, for registration of a company, we need directors. For a private company, at least there need to be 2 directors. Now, these directors should have an identification number, which is called DIN, Directors Identification Number. So, the form DIN-1 can be downloaded from MCA website, and the details have to be filled in. It just costs rupees 100. It just costs rupees 100 to actually get a DIN. So now this DIN shall be used in all correspondence of the director. So and after you obtain the DIN, just takes about an hour to get. You just need an hour to take it a DIN. For the DIN, you need the address proof, the director's address proof, the PAN number, and a photograph. The documents which are there other than the photograph have to be in a PDF file. Photograph has to be in a JPEG file. Next thing a director has to do is acquire a digital signature. Any person can acquire a digital signature. The cost of it approximately varies between 600 to 1500. What is the e-token? E-token is nothing but you get it in the form of a USB, which can be installed in it can be used in any of the computer. Whereas a PFX file is something that is actually installed in your computer itself, the hard disk itself. So the PFX file, it's always suggested that these are all password protected, but please do not share your PFX file over mail or anything, because anyone can replicate it. Now this digital signature has to be role checked with the MCA website. That is nothing but you just have to register yourself as a director and use your registration. You can just register yourself as a director. Now next step, after you apply for a DIN and you get your digital signature, which is about a day's work for anyone, is the form 1A, where you have to apply for the name availability. Now again, in the name availability, we have to check with the ROC whether the proposed name that we are suggesting is actually available with the ROC. That is, there is no other company by that name. There are a few instructions, a few clauses in the Companies Act which says that the name should not be kept something similar to the country's name. It cannot have any it should not be a name which is similar to an existing company. For example, Hindustan Unilever, I can't have a company which is Hindustan Unilever Private Limited. I can't have something like that. So these are the basic things you should not have. You should check. So the ROC checks for the name availability. Form 1A costs you only rupees 500. All the payments have to be made online, and they cannot be made over check or anything. There's another suggestion that, okay, in case there is some problem in the MCA website for uploading of documents or something, you can take all the documents on a USB drive or a pen drive, go to the registrar office, sit there, and you can file it online. But there are no physical documents that can be printed or that should be printed. It's all the things are driven online. I've given a link over here which you can see. That link would take you to the fees PDF, which will give you each state, each location has a different, in each state, for example, Karnataka will have a different registration, and Gujarat may have a different registration. So something will be 500 years, the stamp duty may be different in some other state. So this document will help you, this link will take you to the PDF which has the recent rates available over there. Now after we do for Form 1A usually takes about, ideally it is supposed to take 7 days, but if you have a good liaison with your ROC office and your staff working there, you can probably go and check with them. It just takes about 5 days for them to get back to you. They send you over email that whether the name is available or not. Once the name availability is there, it just takes about within 60 days you have to register your company. Apply for name availability. So now coming to after Form 1A is done, Form 1, Form 18 and Form 32, which talk about incorporation of a company, registered office, and appointment of directors have to be filed. Now, as I already suggested, what are the names what are the documents and information that you will require? These are the documents and the information that needs to be kept ready before you go in for a registration. For example, name of directors, shareholders, the 5 names in order of preference is the company names, object of the company, authorized capital, paid up capital, and significance of the name, why the name has been arrived. So for example, when you give objects of the company, brief object, you just have to quote it in probably 4 lines as to what is the main purpose of the company in the form, beyond which it doesn't take. The rest of the things will follow in memorandum of association. And the documents that you require is proof of identity, address proof, photograph of directors, PAN of directors, and in MOA, these are the things that need to be attached for filing of Form 1. Form 1 requires you to actually file, MOA, AOA, and everything, the consent letter of the directors to act as director. And then in case of a registered office, you have to get, in case of a registered office of the company, the property documents showing that the property is in the name of a person, he has to give an NOC. For example, Mr. A's properties was taken as registered office, he has to give an NOC that he is the owner of the premises and it can be used as a registered office. Declaration by the director of the company that the company will not accept deposits. Now, how do we register? Basically, simple thing, go to MCA 20, just go and Google MCA 21, MCA, it will throw you the MCA website. You can just go down and download the e-forms. Each of the e-forms are in PDF and they have an associated kit. When you download them, they have an associated kit which tells you what all you need to fill and how do you need to fill. So when you fill the form with the basic information like date of birth, DIN number, PAN, etc., there is a pre-fill button which will check. Moment you put the DIN number, the rest of the things will automatically get updated in the form. Similarly, when you put a PAN information, the name of the PAN holder has to match with the number what is already registered with the income tax authority. So these things will automatically be checked by the form in the MCA website, and then it will enable you to, when you click on check form, it will check for completeness of the form. Now it can be done either with the director, or it can be done by a chartered accountant, or a company secretary, or a cost accountant. Now when you do all that, once you submit it, you have to upload the e-form. Payment has to be done online. Acceptance of the payment will be confirmed, post which you will get a request number, service request number, which can be used. This number has to be noted down carefully, because for any tracking your status of your application or whatever, you need this number to be quoted. Now, how, in case of section 25 company, we just have an additional form 24A which has to be filed with the ROC for obtaining the license to perform as a section 25 company. In case of foreign company, I mean, the digital signature need not be registered. An additional form 49 has to be filled for the registration. Now, as I already told you, what the difference between a private company and a public company. A public company accepts, I mean, any public can apply. So there are little more stringent clauses and sections that are applicable to a public company. So we have an additional document called prospectus. Any prospectus, if you want to see, you can actually go to the internet and Google for a prospectus for any company that has done an IPO. Now this prospectus usually is about a 100-page document which contains details like the name of the company, name of stock exchanges, details of licenses, your capital structure. It also talks about how the price has been, the terms of issue, and the book building process. Everything is talked about in that. And additional form 19 and form 20 have to be filed in case of this. Only thing that only when the company gets a certificate of incorporation and the certificate of commencement of business can a public limited company start its operations. Every company is usually given a unique number, and that number is generally quoted everywhere for all the details. Now, what are the documents that has to be filed by a company? As we all know that every company is supposed to maintain its balance sheet, profit and loss, annual returns, and compliance certificates. So here I have given the details of what all and which forms have to be used. Now, any changes in the memorandum of association, articles of association, share capital, directors, management committee, or a shareholding pattern has to be informed to the ROC. Basically, ROC acts as the controlling authority, which takes, even for private companies, they have to give all the details. Because for a private company, no one gets an annual report like that you get of a public company when you buy a share. Now there are additional compliances like I have listed on here. Form 1B, Form 1.8 and Form 17 are pretty important. Form 8 talks about charges. What is a charge? Charge, in a simple term, it's basically any security that is created against an asset. So for example, when I take a bank loan, I only get a secured loan. This is either secured for on debtors or inventory, or on, if it's a term loan, it's secured on the fixed assets. So this Form 8 has to give details about what are the loan amount, what is the security that it is done on. So before any company, any loan, the banks also go through the MCA website and then they download all these documents just to ensure the correctness. Once, what satisfaction of charges is, once the loan is completed, your asset becomes free. So that also has to be filed with the ROC. These are the additional forms. Since I presume the presentation will be available to everyone, so you can just go through as to what additional other compliances the company has to follow with the ROC. Now we all know what is an annual return. We think it's generally the balance sheet and the P&L, but apart from that, it's also the registration of a company. The registration would be the name of the registered office, the registration number, whether the company is listed in any stock exchange or not, what is the capital structure of the company, who are the managers, what are the debentures, if there are any, what is the equity, all that it talks about. It's a standard form which needs to be filled and filed. I've also given a detailed process of how do you fill the balance sheet. Similar thing is followed for P&L and others. Only care has to be taken that your attachment does not exceed 2.5 MB, because beyond that, if it extends, the company's it doesn't get uploaded, the form doesn't get uploaded. Now we have practically finished all whatever is relating to a company. How do you register, what do you do? We just quickly talk about what is winding up of a company. When the company is formed, it's formed for an objective. Once the objective is over and you feel you have to wind up the company, you can do it. Either it's a voluntary winding up or it's a compulsory winding up. Compulsory winding up usually happens when the company is not performing, or company is doing some activities which are against the interest of the public or of the country, or whatever, or a court feels that there is a mismanagement and operation, in which case the tribunal can ask for a compulsory winding up. Now we come to another interesting topic of limited liability partnership. Now partnership, as we all know, is something that is an arrangement between two persons, and all your personal liability and assets are also attached to the partnership. Limited liability partnership gives you the flexibility of a partnership, but at the same time, partners can be, partners have a limited liability, as the name suggests. So it's basically a hybrid between a company and a partnership. The only advantage of having a limited liability partnership is you don't have to comply with too many compliances of the ROC. LLP is governed by the LLP Act and not by the Indian Partnership Act. So the main difference between LLP and the partnership is LLP has a limited liability, whereas partnership has an unlimited liability. LLP act of one partner actually is applicable to all, whereas in this case it's independent of another partner. So if one partner does something that's against the interest of LLP, the others are not held liable. So, and then what is the difference between an LLP and a company? The internal governance, because it's only by a contractual agreement in case of an LLP, whereas in case of a company, it is by the MOA and the AOA. LLP has more flexibility and LLP has less compliance requirements. Some key features of LLP is LLP has to be carried out only for profit, because there is no charitable activity mentioned in the Act, LLP Act. Any business can be carried under LLP, need not be only a consulting business or anything. And as I already said, Indian Partnership Act is not applicable, and audit is also not compulsory. Audit is mandatory only when the turnover increases more than 40 lakhs or net worth, which we call as contribution, increases or is greater than 25 lakhs. Form 11 has to be filed within 2 months of close of accounts, and all you need to do is an annual return, which pretty much comprises the same like a company, and it also includes a statement of accounts and solvency. Now conversion of an LLP of a company into LLP is allowed. Of an LLP into company is not allowed under the LLP Act. It's always, even on the taxation part, LLP does not give too many benefits. So for a person who's looking at starting a company, I always suggest it's better for them to go for a private limited company, because you can easily attract the investors and get the funding. So LLP requires a little more procedural stuff like winding up and then starting another company. So that's a little bit of a more of an admin work required and all that. Now, how can you wind up an LLP? LLP can be wound up again voluntarily or compulsorily. Voluntarily is when when the partners have decided that okay, fine, the object of the LLP is over and they want to close it, or they just so Form E24 has to be done. ROC can alternatively also strike off if it has a reasonable cause saying the company is not, sorry, the LLP is not performing and it's against the against the public or against the security of the country or whatever. So the reasons I have stated down here, which is a good read. Now there are a few common errors that we always observe when we go in for the registration. Basically, we have to check the expiry date, we have to check the payment. Sometimes there are duplicate payments, so once it's already paid, it does not accept. And similarly, the e-filing, the SRN, the track has to be done. The moment a transaction is completed, an SRN number comes. So if the SRN number has not been generated, there's something wrong with the transaction. Another key feature that NCA website allows all the people is the inspection of public documents. So for example, if I want to check any document or any a balance sheet or a profit and loss of any company, I can directly go to the website, pay 50 rupees and view the documents like annual returns, statement of charges, a satisfaction of charges, what is the MOA, what I can view all the documents. The only condition being, once you pay, it's valid for 7 days. Once you log on as a registered user, once you log on and open, the window is open only for 3 hours. So within that, you have to download all the forms and keep it. So for example, if XYZ has a private limited company, you want to see how much is his revenue and how much is his assets or whatever, because private companies don't publish their results. You can always go to MCA website and get the information. So another thing is, please check your e-forms for accuracy, because once it is submitted, nothing can be changed. It cannot be rectified because it's system. And some common examples which we find is authorized capital instead of 10 lakhs, and the stamp duty depends on the authorized capital. So if you make a mistake, you end up paying more. And similarly, company type, it has to be public or a private or whatever company has to be selected correctly. And for Form 1, you have to select which kind of a company it is, whether it's a Section 25 or it is an unlimited company or it's just a new company, whatever. Form 8, very important, because all the banks look into Form 8 and Form 17 before they give loans. So Form 8 is date of charge of creation or modification, and then the numbers, this has to tie up with what is being shown in your balance sheet. Form 5 talks about share capital and any changes in the share capital. So again, these are just a common examples which are given for errors. Now, how much does it cost to register a company? It doesn't cost more than 10,000 rupees. These are the fees which I put. Stamp duty for a 1 lakh is about 8,000, approximately around that, 5 to 8,000. And the time frame for registration of a company, if you have all the documents and you do everything correctly, is about 20 days. So you can register a company in just about 20 days. And then again, coming to MOA, how do we draft it? How do we do it? Do I need a professional person to help me out? You can just buy a Companies Act, and you have Table A, Table B, Table C, Table D, which can be used for memorandum and articles. So Table A talks about articles, Table B is for memorandum. So they give you the format based on which you can actually develop your MOA and AOA. So basically, it's any person individually can register a company without any professional help. So as I said, it just costs you about 10,000. So I wish you all the good luck. Yeah, thank you.
That was a very interesting session, ma'am.
Thank you, Meenakshi.
Um, However, there are quite a couple of questions that the attendees have asked. Should I start the
Yeah.
question and answer round?
Yeah. Please start. Yeah.
Okay. Krishna wants to know, his company is registered as a partnership registered firm. Now he wants to convert it to a private limited company. Does he need to go through the
Yeah.
complete process, or can he reuse the PAN card, service tax certificates, current account, etc.?
No. He has to go through the entire process to register.
Uh, okay. Uh,
Yeah, because there are two different kind of entities. Partnership is totally different, which has got unlimited liability. So the entire thing has to be changed.
okay. Dhan Singh wants to know, what are the different types of capital that are involved?
Yeah. As I told you, first is the authorized capital. That is the cutoff. Like beyond that, the company cannot issue. I mean, beyond that, the company cannot issue shares or cannot collect capital money. So then, after the authorized capital, you have something called as subscribed capital. So, sorry, paid up capital. Paid up capital is, for example, a company can have an authorized capital of 1 crore, but can still call only 10 lakhs as paid up capital because it doesn't want more than that. Authorized capital fixes the ceiling beyond which the company will not have a capital. And after paid up capital, you have subscribed capital. Though a company may have had wanting to get 10 lakhs, but they may have just got about 8 lakhs as subscribed capital. So these are the basic three kinds of capital which you have: authorized, paid up and subscribed capital.
Uh, okay, ma'am. Shubham Saxena wants to know, he started just a second. He started an advertising company for which Bangalore is the best place to start, but it was registered in Gwalior, and now he wants to shift to Bangalore. Would it be a problem? Hello? Hello, Mrs. Jayprakash?
Try talking to me.
Hello? Ma'am, can you hear me? Hello?
Just announced to the audience that due to there's a small tiny technical issue. We'll be back very soon with the questions.
Hello, everybody. I think there is a little technical difficulty on her side. Uh, Within a couple of minutes, we shall be back. Give us a couple minutes. We will continue with the question answer round in a minute.
Just follow up.
For a bit. I'll read out the question and so
Hello.
yeah, can you?
Yeah, I think we just talked that what kind of capital you can have. So you can have authorized, subscribed, paid up capital is what we stopped at. So I think further questions we just have to start.
Um,
Yeah, hello.
what? Just a second, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah.
Repeat it loud and let's just answer.
The question is, next question is difference between subscribed and paid up.
Yeah, so subscribed capital is something that you subscribe for, as the name suggests, and paid up capital is something that you pay up for. I mean, I know it's pretty cheap, but I'll just give you an example. For example, if the capital is about, say, subscribed capital is 100, but I mean, you're subscribing for 100 rupees a share, but you are just paying up probably, say, 80 rupees per share. That is the paid up capital. That is the difference, 20 rupees. Usually companies what they do is they don't call all the shares at one stretch, so all the money at one stretch, so they split it between application, allotment, and calls and all that. So whatever they have, whatever the subscriber has paid for becomes the paid up capital, and subscribe capital is the entire amount which you actually want to subscribe.
Excuse me, ma'am. Sorry for cutting in. There is.
Yeah.
Delay. It seems there is a technical problem at the speaker's end. Please bear with us for 2 more minutes. She will be answering all the questions soon.
A charitable cause without making profit, it's always better to go to register yourself as a trust or a society, because your compliances are very minimal compared to that of a Companies Act. But if you go in for this registration, and the main disadvantage of a Section 25 company is you do it for a social cause, and whatever profits you make cannot be distributed. Basically, you cannot make profits. It cannot be distributed to the shareholders. It has to be used for the cause of for which the company was started.
Okay. Niranjan also inquires, can he convert a firm under Shop Act to a private limited company?
Yeah, you can convert. Yeah, and the same documentation will be there. Basically, any partnership or anything, when you take over the business, there's something called as purchase consideration. You're just buying out that. You can put all that in your balance sheet. The presentations will be different when it comes to your balance sheet and all. You'll have a mention of it, but registering the company, the same process follows. There is nothing different than this.
Even for the website, which is which has a online trading business.
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah. Just that, see, whatever be the difference, whether if it's a website which is trading or if it's a some other manufacturing company, the objects of those companies will be different, which is specified in the MOA, but registration process per se remains the same.
Okay. Kamal wants to know, is it necessary to have a CS for a company registration? Can he, a computer engineer, register his LLP company completely on his own?
Yeah, he can do that.
He can do that. He doesn't need a CS for the registration.
No, because if he's a director, he can register his company.
Okay.
Only thing is, in case, I think some of the forms just ask you if it is, because if you are a CA, you can do it, but he can actually do it himself. He doesn't need any other person to do it.
Right.
He has a DIN and all that, yeah.
Give me one moment, ma'am. What type of forms are required to be filled while setting up a service-based company?
I say, whether it is a service or a manufacturing, as I told you,
the forms remain the same.
Form remains the same. Form 1A, 18, 1A, 1, 18 and 32. These are the main four forms which need to be filled for starting a company. And that's when you get your certificate of incorporation.
So basically, industry can differ, but documentation and registration process for the companies remain the same.
Perfect.
How a person has tried to register a company, but how can he check whether the company is actually being registered or not? How can he cross-check these things?
Yeah, I see. As I said, after every thing you get a reference number. Yes. The service this one number, so you get that number has to be the transaction ID has to be given for you to track. You are on the MCA website, you have track your transaction status, so you can click there, give that reference number, and you can see what stage it is in. And the moment these things are done, you generally get a mail back onto the mail ID which you have given for while registering the company, like while putting form 1A and all. You would have given a registration, you would have given a Gmail ID. So to the director's Gmail ID, generally you get an information from the MCA website that your name has been approved, or your company has been registered, or all that you get it in your mail itself.
Adarsh has just started a company, and he wants to inquire how can he submit annual balance sheet and other documents for his startup.
Yeah, it's through once the year end is there, you can just go to that, you can click on this form 23 AC and all that. For AC is for annual returns, and then you have for balance sheet and P&L. You just have to submit those forms. So you just have to go click there, file annual returns. There is a tab. You can just go there, click it, and then file it.
Right.
Yeah.
Many people.
The attachments have to be in PDF.
Okay. And there are many people who wants to inquire how much can a company depend on a CA, and how much is a general charge for registration of a private limited company.
See,
a CA charges.
Yeah, I'll tell you. See that as such, if you see, the charge is about 10,000. But what happens is when you go as a CA or a CS or whatever, you take a professional person service, there are some informal expenditure that you tend to spend. Like, if you have to get your name approval done quickly, you go to that guy for twice or thrice, and then you just tip him something. So practically, you know how the, government works. So you just have to tip him. So that costs a little more, but any depending on the chartered accountant or the company secretary. But the cost and the main cost is the stamp duty. So depending on your authorized capital, the stamp duty will change. For example, if you want to register a company which has a 1 crore authorized capital, I think in Karnataka it's about 1.5 to 2 lakhs is the stamp duty. So that takes major cost of your chunk. Professional services will be anywhere between 10,000 to about 25,000-30,000.
So
Apart from the
professional
other fees.
charges are only for the CA, but other expenses
Yes.
include the stamp duty.
Yeah, stamp duty, and each of the form costs you about 500 rupees. So
Okay.
that probably is a stamp duty, and about 2,000 rupees is the actual cost. Rest of the cost is for the CA and the informal expenditure if they spend something just to get it quickly done.
Okay. Is it compulsory to get a Shop Act license first and then register a company, or you can just directly go ahead and register the company?
No, you can directly register a company and then go for shops and register, shops and establishment act.
But it's a compulsory piece of a registration process.
Yeah.
And the same person wants to know, is the partnership in LLP compulsory on 50-50 basis, or can one person decide by their own?
No, see, partnership and LLP is totally driven by your partnership agreement or the contractual agreement that you have. So basically we call it the partnership deed, right? So it is totally governed by that. So over there, whatever you decide being the share of profits or whatever, that is what governs it. So there is nothing like 50-50 or anything. So if probably A, B and C want to be in partnership and A gets 90 and B and C just get 5 and 5, it's valid because the partnership deed says that.
Niranja wants to know, is auditing really compulsory for every firm or a company by a credited or a certified auditor, or they can just audit it internally?
No. Audit is for any private limited company. Audit is compulsory by a qualified chartered accountant. So that is the person who has actually passed his CA and also holds a certificate of practice. It need not be that you go to any of the big firms or anything. You can go to any individual also, but he should have his certificate of practice and he should have finished his CA.
Is there something
Only
like
yeah, only the internal audit you can get it done by either a chartered accountant or a cost accountant or any person appointed by the board as per the new companies act. But the statutory audit has to be done by a CA, qualified CA.
Okay. What are the disadvantages of initially registering as LLP and then later converting it to a private limited company? And if
no, actually the LLP Act does not allow you to convert it into a company. So you have to actually wind it up and then start a company. So afresh, yeah.
So the cost will involve in
the same cost, whatever cost you
like
want. As I told, the main a main cost is the stamp duty, which depends on your authorized capital. So that determines your main cost. So if I'm going for a 1 lakh, what example I've given over here is just a 1 lakh, the minimum one. So that will cost you about 5,000 to 8,000. So total cost will be just 10,000. But if you're going for a 1 crore, then you have to pay about two to anywhere between 1.5 to 2 lakhs as a stamp duty itself. And it differs from state to state. It's not that it is the same in each state.
Is there anything like public-private company?
No. Actually, as per the definition, any private company which is a subsidiary of a public company is also a public company. I mean, basically it has to comply with all the formalities of Companies Act as a public company. But there is nothing as a public-private company or a private-public company, no.
Sandeep wants to know what can be a minimum capital required for any incorporation of company.
Yeah, for a private limited company it's 1 lakh and for a public limited company it's 5 lakhs.
If a company is registered,
it doesn't mean that you have to.
Yeah, go ahead.
It doesn't mean that you have to bring in that money. You just have to, in the memorandum, you just have to say that your capital is 1 lakh. Authorized capital is 1 lakh.
Will there be any legal ramification if they say it and they actually don't use it?
No, nothing.
Okay. If a company is registered in India, what are the required documentation needed for operating in other countries, foreign countries? Say if a person.
It depends. That depends on the other country's laws that are applicable. Like for example, like I said, foreign company, a foreign company which wants to start in India has to comply with all the MCA formalities. Similarly, when I have incorporated something in India and I want to open a branch, I have to comply with whatever law that company says. I mean that country has.
Is registering as LLP more beneficial than other structures?
No, I still, if you ask me, it's a subject of debate always. But most of us we feel that registering as a company is much better than an LLP.
Okay. Mr. Anshul Sood says they've started a company with 3 partners. It's a startup company. Partner 1 and 2 have registered a company in US, and they want to get the company in India. Should
So
they
that becomes
be...
a foreign company. So that becomes a foreign company, and when they have to have a place of business in India, then they follow director has to sign, and then they just have to file the documents and get it registered. So it's not really too much of a procedural issue.
Okay, but then can he do it as an LLP or a private limited company when they come to India, or it has to be a foreign company?
No, see, if they can do a separate LLP here, that's not an issue. It's not. Only thing is that the two are not connected. That's all. If you're connecting the two, then it's a private company. Then this is also a private company.
Because what he wants to know is, since he is Indian and he is going to operate and they're going to bring the operations here in India, might as well register it as an LLP or a private limited company.
See, private company is better because down the line anyway I'm sure he'll exit out of the company, because all of them who start the startup, they want to exit 5 years down the line or whatever. It is easier for you to exit. LLP is advantageous only because you don't have too many statutory compliances. So that is one advantage of LLP.
Right. If a company doesn't have a formal address of an office or doesn't have a formal office, can they still register?
No, they can't. A registered office is a must, and you should have the company's board on display in that office, and it should say it should mention the address and everything, and all communications are addressed to the registered office only. So you can't, because then it becomes a paper company. It's not allowed.
Can Ashish wants to know, if it's an online trading company and there is no physical office, they still have to show a physical address to register.
Yes. Yeah. Because any company you register, you should have a place of office, registered office. So that is mandatory, because even your forms will ask you for the register, because that is when you give the address proof and everything, and even your memorandum should have the registered office. So even if it's an online company, you should have a registered office.
A person has started a Section 25 firm. Now he wants to convert it to a private limited. Is it possible?
No, moment you say it's a Section 25 company, it's already registered under Companies Act. But if you have a trust and you want to convert it, it's possible. Just that you still comply with all the provisions of the thing. And when you apply, you clearly say it's a not-for-profit company.
A lot of people have the same question again, that they've started a LLP company and they now wants to convert it to a private limited. So apart from the regular procedure of closing the company and, I'm sorry, ma'am.
Yeah.
The regular process involves closing the LLP and then starting and registering the private limited company afresh. Will there be any issues involved in it? Because if they're closing down a company, that means they are completely closing down the company, LLP, and then No.
That's not an issue, because when they close it down, they can clearly say that it's a voluntary winding up, because they want to start public. So they want to start a private company, so they're not much of an issues. You can just generally voluntarily wind up any company. Just that you have to file your annual returns, and for example, if I'm closing it now, I have to file the annual returns, balance sheet, and everything should be drawn as of today, and then I have to file it, and all that is there. But beyond that, it is not an issue. You can just close it down. Even for example, there are companies where people have not been able to manage, so they're like, no, we don't have people to manage, and we're closing it down. We can close it down.
Okay. Niranjan wants to know if one can do business under Shops Act. Why does they need to go ahead and complete other procedures and register?
So see, these are two different acts. Shops and Establishment Act talks about you have an office and it is registered under Shops and Establishment Act. Whereas a company is something which you register because you have a limited liability and all that. So any shop is registered under Shop and Establishment Act, whereas every company, every shop is not a company. So, they're two different acts.
When a company changes its structure from one to another, can they keep their old name of the company, or they have to change the whole name and modify it or anything?
No. See, the name depends on the availability of the registrar. We cannot decide what name I want. So I have to give options of like 5. For example, I say ABC Limited, BAC Limited. So I have to give my choice of preference 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So when I give these 5 to 6 names, the registrar will tell you which name is available. If none of the names are available, he gets back to you and he says, none of the names are available, change your name and come back. So form 1A and its acceptance decides on the name availability.
Kamal also wants to know that is there anything similar to benefit corporation in India?
No, not really.
Okay. Sandeep has asked a question. Once registered, do we need to get the registration renewed again the same?
No. There's no registration. It just continues. You just have to keep filing your annual returns, and as I said, any changes in a simple term, more than the forms, any changes in your memorandum, any changes in directors, any change in registered office, or any change in shareholding pattern, or all that has to be informed to the ROC, because basically they are the checker.
Okay. Only if there is a change in address and all these things, they need to be informed. Otherwise, everything remains same.
Yeah, and yearly all the exactly, and yearly all the companies have to file their balance sheet, P&L, annual returns, and everything.
Your trademarks. Are the trademarks important for startups?
Not really. The trademarks are not important for startups. Patents may be advantageous to the startups. If they apply for patents and they get something, it will attract investors. It will give them the basically, if you can link as to how the patent will help in generating the revenue, and what is the USP of the patent and all that, that generally attracts your investors, PE guys, the VC funding and all that.
Okay. Shiva says
it's not mandatory. Yeah.
Sorry. Shiva says he's into a customer internet business, and one of his mentor advised him to register as LLP. But as you said, the act doesn't allow, the LLP into private limited company is a little difficult, and the process has to be started from the scratch. He just wants to know your what do you suggest to him? I
usually suggest registering as a private limited company for 2 reasons. One, because any which ways you have to follow that whole procedure of registering, and it doesn't take longer time if you can. It just takes about 20 days to get your company registered. If that is one. And second thing is, if you want to exit any day down the line, it is always easier that you have a company. That time you don't have to run around registering your company, because that time the investors may change their mind. That is second. And the third thing is, on the tax front, I don't see any. See, the main difference why people go for LLP is the compliance issue, and they think if you can. But see, your MAT is also 18.5%, and your LLP is also charged at that rate. So there's no big difference as such for an LLP. There's no big advantage as such, even in taxation terms, for the LLP. So just because of some compliances, I think which you can always do it if you're carrying your company pretty ethically. So you just have to just file the balance sheet, P&L and all that. So that doesn't take a longer time. So my personal suggestion always is a private limited company.
There's one more last question, ma'am.
Yeah.
The company needs to there's a person who has a company they need to partner with a foreign company for a project. Do they need to share the profit 50-50, or how should they go about it? Can they open another subsidiary? Yeah, go ahead,
They can open a subsidiary, but usually what happens is, if you have a company, and the usual thing that they do is enter into a joint venture or a special purpose vehicle, SPV, which is formed only for the purpose of that project, and then they close it. So there is another provision of SPV, which is again a private limited company you can start on. So otherwise JV would be good ideally, and there is no necessity that you have to share 50-50, because the contractual agreement between them and the qualities and probably the skill set that each of them come with, they have to negotiate between them as to what is the share and percentage. Not no law says that it has to be 50-50.
Okay. Ma'am, one more question before we wind up. What is TOT, and can you put a little more stress on the explanation on TOT?
Sorry, what is?
TOT. That's what the person has written.
TO?
TOT.
No, I have no idea what is TOT.
TOT. Well,
no, I'm sorry, TOP or POT, I don't know. I mean.
Okay. With that, I think we are done with all the questions.
Yeah. And Meenakshi, anyone can feel free to mail me.
Okay.
On my mail ID, which has been provided. So in case they have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Great. Thank you very much for this interesting session, ma'am.
Thanks a lot, Meenakshi. Yeah.
Thank you all our attendees for participating so patiently in the webinar. We are glad that the questions kept coming in, and the presentation recording of the session will be uploaded in our YouTube channel soon. If you found the session interesting, tweet us at NEN India, and the recorded session will be available at www.youtube.com/user/eClubNEN online by tomorrow. NEN has workshops lined up on this month too. On December 7th, getting to market, and raising fund and getting to market on 14th as well. The registration is completely free. Please enjoy these sessions. Thank you once again, and have a nice evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. It's available on YouTube tomorrow.